the ages as they relate to the development of man.
And you did say the great year, correct?
Yes, the great year. So first up on the list is the celestial sphere. The celestial sphere is an imaginary ball that surrounds the Earth. It contains all of the stars that can be seen from Earth. Theoretically, it continues into eternity, with its center point being the Earth. Everybody got that?
Are we supposed to write that down?
No, I gotta listen, because if I try to
You-
write it down,
I know.
I can't listen.
But do you understand? Okay. This is where the 88 constellations come from. They're found on the celestial sphere. Okay? The sphere is particularly important for viewing the sky from the ground. It gives the stargazer a roadmap to track the movements of the sun. Okay? So it was created as this imaginary ball that surrounds the Earth, full of stars. In this imaginary ball that surrounds the Earth, full of the stars that we can see, they have pulled 88 constellations. Those 88 constellations make up the celestial sphere.
So just so I can understand, it's like the celestial sphere is a balloon, and then everything else is like the particles of helium inside the balloon.
The Earth is like a ball inside of the balloon.
Okay.
The Earth is a ball that's floating inside of the balloon.
Okay.
But theoretically, the balloon would continue into eternity.
It's like the galaxy, right?
It continues into the galaxy, right? But if one was to be outside of the Earth's atmosphere in somewhere in the universe, and he wanted to look at what Earth sees from Earth, he would be directed to the celestial sphere. If there was an extraterrestrial who came in and said, or if I met an extraterrestrial, let's say, somewhere in the universe, and he said, hey, what constellations are viewable from Earth? I would say, well, take a look at the celestial sphere. That would be the imaginary portion that surrounds the Earth. Because the Earth sits here in space, okay? There's a group of stars that you can see from Earth. But there's also a group of stars over here that you can't see from Earth. They're not included in the celestial sphere. You understand what I'm saying?
So,
It's a ball.
I know, but I'm saying, like, if the celestial sphere is in the galaxy, how can you see that from Earth, like, the imaginary line? Like, if it's supposed to be...
It's not an imaginary line. What it is there's 88 constellations that we accept as the constellations of the night sky from Earth. The point that I was making was, if you were not from Earth and you wanted to know what can be viewed from Earth, you would take that list of constellations that can be found in the celestial sphere. And what you will find is that they surround the Earth from the view of the ground. Again, it's an imaginary thing. It's not actually there. Remember, there's the actual and there's the apparent. It's not actually there. It's an imaginary ball that surrounds the Earth. But 88 constellations would be included. So if you wanted to go past the Earth without being seen in a vessel, the celestial sphere would give you the farthest constellation to the east and the farthest constellation to the west that would be viewable from Earth. So you say, I have to avoid this constellation or avoid this constellation in order to not be seen by anybody on Earth. You understand?
Is that viewable without a telescope or just with the naked eye, or?
With a telescope.
With the telescope.
With a telescope. For all intents and purposes. Some of them are viewable without a telescope, but with a telescope. Hubble telescope in particular.
Do you see those little meteorites going across the sky? Is that like...
They're going through the celestial sphere. Anything
like...
that you can see from Earth is part of the celestial sphere. It's the night sky. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. Now, the reason why we mention the celestial sphere is because, again, this is a look it up movement. And we want you to look it up. So if you go to study these things, these issues, equinoxes, ages, the precession, if you go to study these things, you're going to need celestial sphere. You're going to need to know what celestial sphere is, because there's a whole lot of reference made to the celestial sphere. Because people that study these things are looking at things from a universal standpoint, and they're looking at things from a galactic standpoint. So you can't just make an absolute and say there are 88 constellations in the sky. No. Somebody that understands the universe knows, no, there's way more than 88 constellations in the sky. It goes out into eternity. So we have to find a term for those 88 constellations that we can view from Earth. So they made up the celestial sphere. So now, when we deal with its actual, because science deals with, well, Western literary sciences deal with the actual. And so it's actually a celestial sphere as defined by science. It's actually an imaginary ball that contains the 88 constellations. You understand what I'm saying? So people won't question, anything outside of that. And also anything that's considered to be part of the celestial sphere is accepted as something that's viewable from the ground into the sky. So it's universally accepted. So there's a whole lot of applications for the celestial sphere. But again, it's a very simple concept. It's a globe that surrounds the Earth that contains all of the stars viewable from the Earth. Got it? Mm-hmm. Okay. So there are two lines that we will be concerned with today. The first is the celestial equator. Now, those that's watching on the DVD, the picture should be up by now. And I am not doing this at the same time, so I'm not quite sure. I may be following the picture, I may not. But the celestial equator will go this way. The celestial equator. Now, the celestial equator is, okay, first of all, does anybody know what the Earth's equator is?
Where the Earth's equator?
What it is?
It's an invisible line that goes around the center of the Earth.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an invisible line that goes around. It's a false line. Doesn't really exist, but science puts it there. And it separates the north and south half of the Earth. It's called the equator. Aptly named. Equator. Equal. See the prefix EQU. Equal. So it makes the Earth, it splits the Earth in half. Now again, because the celestial sphere outside of the Earth, it's modeled after Earth. So they project that line called the equator into the celestial sphere. And that's called the celestial equator. Got it? So you have the Earth equator and you have the celestial equator in the sky. Got it? Simple concept by itself. Okay. Now the second is, vocabulary word number 2. Remember the first was the apparent view. And actually, vocabulary word number 2 is astronomy. Before we continue. Number 2 is astronomy. Now, and let me just be clear because oftentimes I forget myself which is which, but we wanted to point out astronomy because a lot of times people get confused as to what is the difference between astronomy and astrology. So, in short, astronomy is the scientific study of the universe. The scientific study of the universe. Okay? Now, when we get into the elements, which is lesson 3, we're going to destroy the idea of the word science. Okay? But for right now, we'll accept science as a legitimate word.
The scientific study of the universe?
The scientific study of the universe. Scientific as we all understand scientific to mean. Again, we're going to destroy the word scientific in the next lesson. But for this lesson, we're going to use it as we know it to mean, scientific. So it's a scientific study of the universe. It's what the planets actually are doing. The gases that they contain, the amount of heat that they emanate, how far away they are from other celestial objects and things like this. The actual physical. Now,